A $7,000 3D printer just to get started in a new hobby? Maybe not. That's what's coming up next on LCARA Ham Radio. Hello folks, this is Chris, KY4CKP. Well, in the last video that I did where I mentioned 3D printing and ham radio, right? Do you even ham? We had a question on that video from a ham asking if maybe I could do a video on how I chose the 3D printer that I ended up with, which is the Anycubic Cobra S1, the combo edition. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. And you know, a lot of times they'll say if you get one question about something, there's probably a whole bunch more people who had the same question. They just, you know, didn't ask the same question. And we had our monthly meeting recently, and at the monthly meeting we had a fair number of our members there, and I asked them. I said, I know some of you have 3D printers, and I think at least four other members have 3D printers. But I said, would anybody else be interested in that particular subject for a video? And a few of them raised their hands. And I said, well, at least one of our viewers was interested in that, and at least some of our club members are interested in that, so it might not make a bad video. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and just talk for a little bit about sort of the thought process and the decision process that I went through. Now, this is the kind of thing, like so many other things that you can buy or that you may want, hobbies you have or hobbies you may get into. The right answer can easily be different for everybody. But we'll go over what I thought about and why I ended up with this particular printer, and you know, would I buy it again? I guess some of that stuff. So here we are on the old interwebs, and shameless plug for our club website, LCARA.net. But let's hop over and just go to, say, your search engine of choice, and let's do something simple like there in the upper corner. I typed in best 3D printers of 2025. Now, obviously 2025 isn't over yet, but I'll use this kind of search type kind of phrase even if we're only partway through a year, just to help make sure I'm getting hopefully the more recent reviews of products and things like that. Or I may specifically say, show me the best of whatever for 2024, right, or whatever it was. So that's just what I typed in, right, just to get started, because I'm new to 3D printing myself. I've been working with the printer I got for a couple of months now. I've been keeping it pretty busy with all kinds of just projects and things to learn the printer and what it's capable of, and learn about filaments. I have not gotten into, and may never get into, resin 3D printing, although it seems very, very cool, and I think it can do some things that filament printing maybe can't, but it can certainly do things in a different way. So that's a whole separate topic that I don't know anything at all about, and I'm new for filament printers. But this is pretty much how I started a couple of months ago, and I've already put, gosh, what am I coming up on? I'm coming up on 300 hours on the printer, and coming up on 200 print jobs. And I've had a few failures, but actually mostly, by far, mostly successes. Not so much because I'm so smart or anything. It's just the printer's working well, and the models I've chosen, most of them, the designers and stuff, did a good job on them. 3D printing's come a long way. I know in even the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years, certainly compared to say 10 years ago. So I just brought up this list by doing a search, and just kind of picked some, at least for me, websites and things that were kind of known, and I know that they do reviews of hardware. Some of these are historically kind of computer, but other technology related, kinds of things. So Tom's Hardware Guide. I remember when Tom's came out years ago. CNET, PC Mag, some of these places. So I just opened a few of those up, and you can go to any sites that you're familiar with, right, and that you're comfortable with, and you just start looking. And a lot of times, what I'll do, and what I did a couple of months ago, is I'll open several different locations, several different websites, and I'll see whatever I'm looking for, what seems to pop up on multiple lists and get good reviews from multiple sites, right? They may not be in the same positions on every single list. Could be a 1 over here and a 5 over there and a 3 over here, right? But what's consistently popping up on multiple lists, getting decent reviews, and you look into, then you start to do the best job you can about doing some feature comparisons, and then of course price and something. And so that's just what I did. So if we look at PC Magazine here, if we start with that, so they had their list, right? So you can just run down through the list, and you can see obviously there's some different price points from $7,000. Well, maybe this isn't the hobby for me, right? But down to less than 300, right at the 300 mark, and there are less expensive printers than that. You can get going. Didn't really look at that category too strongly, but 100, 150, 200, right? There's some stuff out there that's not, because there are some kid specifically focused printers out there. I wouldn't really call them toys either, but there are some printers in the certainly 150 to 250 mark. You can see there's a couple on this list that are in the right at $300 mark or just over. You got the $7,000 one. You got the $2,500 one. Still not maybe the the hobby for me to just take a look at. Right. I'm trying to, we all, I think many of us are kind of gearheads, gadget heads, and stuff, and we like the shiny new gadget, but still maybe keep things a little bit reasonable. So here you can look at this now. One of the things that, again, one of the printers that came up time and time again, and I was also doing searches on YouTube. Best, 3D printers 2025, similar kinds of search things, and comparing those lists. You'll have people that do top 5, top 10, top whatever, and just seeing again what's on multiple lists. And one of the printers that's considered a very, very good entry level printer, doesn't cost that much. Okay, it's not the cheapest, but it doesn't cost that much. Is from Bamboo Labs. Now, Bamboo Labs has been a big name, especially in the last few years in 3D printing, and deservedly so. They've made some really great printers, all different styles and kinds of printers and price points. They have good software. Okay, you can see here that they've got the Bamboo Lab A1, considered a decent printer. But one of the ones that they had is the, let me scroll up to the top there, the Bamboo Lab A1 Mini. Now they also have the A1, which is a little bit more of full-size printer. This is called the Mini because guess what? It's smaller. In fact, I think I don't have to scroll too far, maybe. The bed size is fairly small on this one. It's down there somewhere. It is pretty small compared to a lot of the other ones, right? And so that's something you would take into account. Now this one's about $250. But if you get this add-on, so if you see this thing sort of to the side of the printer, and you can kind of see it's holding multiple spools of filament and different colors of filament, all right, that's an add-on, and it allows you to run and load up multiple colors at the same time and quickly. I have to use my air quotes here. Quickly, we'll get into that in a second, and pretty easily move between different colors during a print or different things. Otherwise, there are techniques where you can manually like pause the print, change filament to a different color or something, and do that. But you can see if you get it the combo, right, it's listed at about $400. But for a decent, although somewhat small printer, and that 4 filament holder combo $400 is still pretty entry level. Okay, it's a decent printer, and it's a well-known company, so that could be a way to go. But as I, excuse me, as I was doing research, and I'm the kind of person, and maybe some of you are too, but I look at this and I go, not that expensive, right? The barrier to entry for this new hobby, not too expensive. Does, can have, you don't even have to buy it right away, but you could step up to down the road. The 4-color external filament feeder and everything, which was intriguing to me. Didn't know anything about it much, but certainly seems interesting, seems cool. Having more cables and wires and tubes and stuff, it's got to be cooler, right? But I just kind of felt like, well, if I do get into this, I just felt like I might outgrow this printer fairly quickly. I didn't know that was going to be true, but knowing myself, I've had a few hobbies over the years and just different things. I just suspected that was going to be true. So this has a great reputation, not a bad place to consider starting if any of you folks are thinking about a printer. And again, you don't want to spend too much. It's like when my wife and I decided to get motorcycles, because I had a mini bike as a kid, my brother and I did, and always liked them and always thought about getting, a real motorcycle when I got older and just hadn't got around to it. So I guess when I turned, a little after when I turned 40, and my wife was interested in riding. So we got bikes. Well, I thought about the same thing. Do you immediately go out and buy, $20,000-$30,000 motorcycle that you're pretty much guaranteed to wreck? Because when you're a new rider, you're pretty much guaranteed at some point you're going to wreck your bike in some fashion. Or do you start with something less expensive? And maybe you do outgrow it, but then when you've got some experience stuff, you do something else. But with this, I just didn't feel like starting with a completely entry-level system. That was just me, okay? But this is considered a pretty good entry-level printer, and not too expensive to dip your toes in that water, okay? So I decided not to go with this one, but it is considered a very good choice. Now here's just another list. It's a longer list. It's got, I think, 26 categories. But again, you start seeing some of the same names popping up over and over again, right? So there's Bamboo Lab. They've got quite a few well-known and good printers on the market. There's the full-size A1 that's on this list, and I think maybe lower down, there's the A1 Mini down here on the list. Right, so the A1 Mini's popping up, more than once, and things like the A1, the P1S, the Century Carbon, I think, is on here. The X1C, again, there's just a number, that they tend to start popping up time and time again. So that's a big part of how I start to research things. I use YouTube. People review stuff on YouTube and create lists on YouTube. We all like to go to YouTube University, but just regular web searches, find these lists, and I start comparing lists, and then I start to narrow my focus down. And then I'll watch a few videos on this particular make a printer, and then I'll watch a few videos on this other, make a printer, and I'll just start learning a little bit what some of the language is, what are some of the features that I am probably going to, care about, things like the size of the print bed. Well, the A1 Mini is fairly small. I think it's 180 millimeters square, and then you've got some third dimension in there. A lot of the modern printers, now there are larger exceptional cases, but a lot of the modern printers are in the 256 millimeter range. The one I settled on is 250 millimeters. So it's just a little smaller than the relative average of some of the other printers, sort of in its category. I was okay with that because that's not a real big difference. I really didn't think that was going to bother me anytime soon, okay? So again, looking at that one, well, again, a popular printer that was pretty new, the Anycubic Cobra S1 was a fairly new, what's called an enclosed core XY printer, which means it has an enclosure around it, and instead of the bed moving so much, right, the bed will go up and down, but it's stable otherwise. The print head moves around. Right, The let's take the A1 Mini. Just go back here for a second. The A1 Mini. This is known as a bed slinger style of printer because the bed moves around a whole bunch, and it's the print head only goes up and down. So, and you can see it's open frame, right? Does not have an enclosure. So those are a couple of the big differences. Bed slingers are less expensive and can be decent printers, right? No doubt about it. They tend not to be quite as accurate as the Core XY printers. Again, they can produce good prints, but they tend not to be quite as accurate. So it's just something to consider. The open framework versus one that has an enclosure, again, it's going to be less expensive, but it also means there are certain kinds of filaments that you may not be able to work with either at all or very easily. So I took that into consideration. I'm like, I have no idea what kind of filaments I may or may not get into. Stuff that has carbon fiber in it, or wood fibers in it, or glass fibers in it, or just, so I'm thinking, again, I don't want to outgrow my first printer, but I also don't want something, super expensive. So I was looking around, and so I started to gravitate towards an enclosed Core XY style of printer. It just started to sound like probably where I would want to start for myself. And I knew that was sort of going to be putting me into a certain price point as well, right? And so one of the printers I actually looked at because it was getting good press and some good reviews and stuff. If it was newer, the company's not brand new, but this particular model was newer stuff. Is this Century Carbon, and you can see it's not that expensive for an enclosed core, what's called a Core XY printer. Again, that's where the print head moves more than the bed does, and obviously you can see it has this cabinet around it. $300, and it was getting good reviews and things. And I was looking pretty hard at this one. I had watched a few videos on a few different models, a couple of different brands, and I was really starting to gravitate towards this one. And then when I came here to the website, ready to make a purchase actually, and this was again about 2 months ago, here on the web page, there was a big notice that said that there was a 2-month backlog, right? 2-month back order on the printers because they had come out and they were at that price point, and they were really popular, and they immediately ran out of them. And I was like, man, what a bummer, because I don't tend to be the most patient of people many times, and I was pretty bummed because I was ready to buy one. Who knows? If I liked it, buy a second one, at that price point. But I'm like, well, I really don't want to wait 2 months. I want to get in, on this and start working with it, which is how I usually am. So I ended up not going with the Century Carbon, but it looks like a pretty good printer. Entry level, Core XY, right? So if you're looking at stuff, again, it's got that 256 by 256, bed size, which is fairly standard or something close to it. You can see it won an award and everything. So if you're thinking about a printer, take a look at this one. Do your own research, but I'll just kind of tell you some of the things I was looking at. But I would still take a good look at this one. And there's no message here on the website, at least for right now, about it being back ordered. So I would assume, and there's probably other outlets maybe where you can find this, and maybe at a slightly cheaper price. I don't know if it may be on Amazon, whatever. But start doing your research. But yeah, I looked at that one pretty closely. I looked at this one closely, right? And this was on a lot of lists. This was in a lot of the YouTube videos. Again, Bamboo Lab. If you're new to 3D printing, may not mean anything to you, that particular name, but if you start doing some research, you'll hear a lot about Bamboo Lab, and most of it's good. And the P1S, again, a little bit. If we're talking, I would consider mid-tier printers. This is upper mid-tier, probably. You can see what they say the normal price is, almost $1,200, but it's running $870 right now. Has the ability to have an external, right, an external four position, feeder system for multiple colors and everything. Again, good company, good reputation. Looked at this, pretty much liked everything I heard about it. But the price is up there a little bit, and there's some recent controversy about how they're handling their software and a couple things. It wasn't the biggest of deals to me, but that price point, I was just like, yeah, it's really outside what I wanted to look at for a first-time printer. Sounds like a great printer, but maybe I don't start here. Other lists, right? Just looking at other lists, and Creality. Creality has a big name. I knew of Creality. I've never had a printer. I knew of Creality because the Ender Pros and the Enders and stuff. They really opened up the market early on. The open frame printers and stuff. Tons of people had them. Well, and I'd heard of this printer as I was doing research. The K2 Plus combo. Notice how a lot of things are sold as a combo with that external, some sort of an external 4-position feeder, and some of them can take multiple of the external ones. The Bamboo Lab, some of theirs can have up to 4 of these external boxes. So you could be choosing from 16 different colors right from the software on your laptop, desktop, and even phone apps. Um, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to get that heavy into it, but I mean it's an interesting option, right? But to have one box, is kind of interesting. This is a big printer. This is a bigger printer. Then the other's bigger build plate, as they call it. Nice printer. Most people like it quite well. Okay, you can see the reviews and things. $1,500. Now it has the external box, and some of the other ones don't. But again, I looked at that and I was like, yeah, that's just not really where I need to start, right? I'm impatient and everything, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that's a little outside my budget, right? Again, look at all the lists that are out there on YouTube and other places, and watch a few reviews and pick 2, 3, 4 models, watch 3 or 4 or 5 videos on each one. You can narrow down your choice and start to learn what are the features available, what do the features do, why might you want them. It'll help you just learn enough to make a decision. At least that's how I do it. Best overall 3D printer, Bamboo Lab A1 combo. Again, that's the A1. Right, it's an open frame and everything, but you can have the 4 external colors and some things, and not a super expensive starting point. This was also mentions the Anycubic Cobra S1, which was newer. Again, Anycubic's been around doing printers for a while, but they hadn't. I think this was their first enclosed Core XY printer. They had been doing the open frame styles for a while and had a reasonable reputation and everything, making decent printers. They came out with this one at a really attractive price point, right? $550 on Amazon, and you get the external box. And if I remember correctly, with the Cobra S1, so you got just the Cobra, and here was the other thing, and you can see it's going to be still true today. So we're at Anycubic's website. Anycubic Cobra S1, $449. It's not a bad entry-level price for an enclosed, Core XY kind of a printer. Again, we're talking mid-tier, right? It's not $700-800, but it's not just $400. But it's not a bad price. But if you consider getting the combo where it comes with that external box, right? They call it the Ace Pro, which is, I even forget now, but Ace isn't actually an acronym. It's a something color thing, but it's what allows you to bring in and choose between multiple colors from the software, and you don't have to always manually be changing things. I think you can have up to 2 of those external boxes. Some of the Bamboo Labs can have up to 4 external boxes. So if you really think you're going to get into stuff where you need lots and lots of colors at your fingertips all the time, and you don't want to change filaments frequently, Bamboo Labs may be the way to go, right? Well, there was one extra thing about this that caught my attention, right? One other feature is most of these printers have some pretty similar features. They can handle some, generally, especially the enclosed ones. Once I made the decision, I'm pretty sure I want to go with an enclosed printer and the Core XY style of printer within a price point range, within a category. They start to have pretty similar features. Especially now, even 2 months later, from when I made my decision. Many brands have these external boxes of their own design. to do the same kinds of jobs, but I think this was the first printer, second printer, one of the really early printers where not only does it have this external box, but this box can dry your filament. The different filaments that you can use with 3D printers will slowly or not so slowly over time absorb moisture out of the air. And then that's bad. Okay, it's bad when that happens. It doesn't necessarily mean the filament is just ruined, but it's you can't really use it if it has absorbed too much moisture. So they make boxes that are basically heaters, and you can stick filament in there, heat it up. Usually you would want to do it for several hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, something like that. If you really suspect, it's not a brand new pack, it's been out of its packaging for several weeks. And depending on where you live and how humid it is and where your printers are, there's all those factors. But this can help dry your filament. And in fact, it can be drying filament, and then you can start printing with it. The printing and the drying can happen at the same time. And for almost all the other ones on the market, at least in these lower, these mid-tier price points, didn't have that feature. I think some of you get into four-figure printers, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000. Maybe some of them had it. That really wasn't what I was looking at. So my, and the Century Carbon back order for 2 months. I mean, I went to the website to buy that printer, and it was on back order. So I did a little more research and kind of came to this one and said, okay, it's more expensive, but it's got the external box, and the external box can serve as a dryer. So I looked at this and I said, maybe I'll go with this one. Again, it's got very similar feature set to almost any of the other brands. They're all pretty similar. But the external box and its dryer, and again, there's software that you can use on your computer. There's a app you can use on your phone. Most of these kinds of printers have cameras where you can monitor the print, have it do a time lapse of the print. Quality of the cameras not always the greatest, I'll be honest, but it's there, and especially for monitoring your print. If you're someplace, I can be out to dinner and I can bring up the app and check on it, pretty much anytime, anywhere. And so most of them use very similar software. There's an open source software called Orca, right? Orca, like the aquatic mammal, slicer. They call the software you typically are going to directly interact with the printer. They call it a slicer. 3D printing, you print in layers or slices. So the slicer, you put in your file, and it basically breaks it down into all those layers, all those slices. Again, hence the word slicer. Does some calculations and things, builds the code that it will send to the printer, so the printer understands how to print your item. Okay, and I won't get too deep into that because there's entire videos on how to use the software and different kinds of software. But most of them are built off of, I think the original, was it Prusa? I think Prusa is a brand, Prusa, and Prusa Slicer was one of the first. There's an open source slicer that's built on that called Orca Slicer, and I know several of the other brands are all built on that basic foundation of software. Now they all kind of put their own twist to it, but once you kind of learn one, you'll sort of have a feel for the others. Okay. And lots of videos on how to learn that software. Okay. So this was the printer I settled on, and it was a combination of features, the type of printer. Again, I am curious about resin printing, where like the laser hits the liquid. You may have seen videos or some pretty cool stuff. But it seemed maybe kind of messy, and the smells and things. I was just looking to put this printer in my home office and cost, different things like that. And then again, the more entry level ones that are open framed and stuff. Those have come a long way in the past 2, 3, 4 years too. But I just kind of felt like this tier and this style of printer would suit me the best. A little more than I was hoping to have to pay, but again, this one has a combo and everything, pretty good deal overall, it seemed like to me. Again, your mileage may vary, and you may want to start with the A1 or the A1 Mini. And any Cubic has open frame type printers and stuff. So just do some research and see what people say about them. And I tend to do a lot of research before I get things, and it's not just a matter of how much it's going to cost. I'll do a lot of research, watch a lot of videos, look at a lot of websites, just to try to make sure I'm spending my money reasonably wisely, right? So that's how I ended up on the Cobra S1. Now, if you happen to have an Amazon account, okay, let's take a look at the price. So for the standalone Cobra S1 on Anycubic's website, $450. And then for the S1 combo, $599. So $150 for the external box that can not only feed 4 filaments and change between 4 filaments pretty quickly and easily, but it also acts as the dryer, right, is $599. But if you have an account and you go to Amazon, right, the standalone printer without that external box, $459 or $449, and the combo with the external box, $499. Okay. Right, or you can go to Anycubic sort of official, and it's the full price or whatever. So look around. Sometimes you can find printers from different vendors, and it could definitely be cheaper than on the website. Now sometimes the website is cheaper because they may be running a local dedicated discounter or something. So just look around before you actually buy the printer. All right, so that was just some of the thought process. What kind of features are out there? Because I didn't know anything, so I had to learn what kind of features are out there. What can a 3D printer do? What's the terminology? Okay, it took a little while just to start to learn that kind of stuff. And then again, I start going to those lists for almost anything. I start looking for lists. What's the best whatever, 2025, and whatever starts popping up on multiple lists, multiple YouTube videos, getting good reviews, and there's going to be people who are not happy about anything. You can pick any of these printers we've looked at. There's people who had the worst experience of their life with that printer. But most of them are considered pretty decent printers, and most of them have certainly more positive experiences and positive reviews than negative. And you have to take any reviews, positive or negative, with a grain of salt. And that's why I look for multiple sources. And if it's consistently getting good reviews, right, not just from one site, right, or not just from the manufacturer, then that's what helps drive my decision. So Core XY, they tend to be able to have higher quality print output. They tend to be able to work with a wider array of filament types than the exposed open frame type printers, which may not affect everybody. Again, some of those filament types I may never use. I have bought a number of filaments. That's sort of the addiction part of it, is you get a printer and then there's all kinds of colors, there's all kinds of filament types, and it just so then you never have enough filament, right? It's like, well, I know I have an orange, but I want that shade of orange, whatever it is. And I may never get into the carbon fibers and some of that kind of stuff. I mean, who knows? Or the glass fiber filled, or who knows? But I have the option, right? It gives me the option if I ever do want to get into some of that stuff with this particular printer. So again, some of the things to think about: the size of the print bed. There's noticeably bigger printers out there, and there's things that would be interesting to me to print, where a bigger print bed would be nice, but not to the point where I'm going to spend several $100s more, $1,000 more. to get that size of a printer. Not anytime soon, I don't think. But those options are out there too. You know, there are extra large printers. So again, we had the question on that previous video, and some of our club members were also, you know, kind of interested in what I was sort of looking at. But that's how I went about it. Check lots and lots of lists. Go on YouTube, you'll find people making lists, comparative lists. And a lot of those people have owned a whole bunch of different printers. Not everybody's brand new like I am. But you'll also find videos on people, if you get down to a couple of models that you're interested in, you'll probably find some videos of people who, hey, I'm brand new and I just got this printer, and you know, here's my unboxing experience, and here's my first few prints experience, you know, or whatever. And some are good and some are bad, right? So just do a little homework, watch a few videos, read a few websites, and should help you figure out what you want to purchase. Because not everybody's going to want or need this. A little more entry level, like an A1 Mini or an A1. And there's other brands of those kinds of printers, and Anycubic has those kinds of open frame printers. It's a great way to start for a lot of people, I'm sure. So that's probably long enough for this video. I just have a few other things open. I just did some other searches, right, just in a search engine. So if you can see it up there, I just put in 3D print and some radio names. 3D print ICOM. Just a really open generic search. But you can see here, there's going to be a lot of stuff related to ICOM radios that you could print. Brackets and holders and frame rails and you know, the 705, and you know, there's lots of stuff out there. Okay, that if you had a printer, you can either go to eBay, or you can, you know, go to Etsy or Amazon or different places, find somebody else who had a 3D printer, and either they designed it or they have hopefully a commercial license to sell it, and buy it from them. I bought a number of things that have been 3D printed in the last few years. Now I could print them myself, right? You may not do enough of that to you know, pay for the printer, but if you want it for a number of things, I can do stuff for HAMRadio, I can do stuff for astronomy, for my car, around the house, for decorations for our game room that my wife and I have, and you know, so I was just kind of looking at lots of things that I'd probably be able to do. So you know, that's ICOM, and then here's what I do next, Yaesu. Right, and different things for different Yaesu. I showed this in the other video. Let me bring this back up. Right, I showed this this holder. Right, see this kind of white holder. It's made out of glow-in-the-dark filament, by the way. I mean, I had to get some glow-in-the-dark filament, right? And there's different colors of that, but hold your radios as long as they have a battery in them, or it'll hold batteries by themselves. And I showed that I've printed a few of these actually. I've got one I need to give to my brother because he wanted one. Just to keep them organized and out of the way and not flopping around the desk all the time. Something else I just printed for my FT3DR, okay, is a desktop stand. And you see it's purple. I just got this transparent purple filament, and because my wife's favorite color is purple and everything, and transparent stuff can be pretty cool. I have kind of completely clear filament, transparent orange, transparent red. You know, you got to start playing around with types and colors of filaments and things. But that's a stand for that. I mean, you know, again, so you see here lots of brackets and things, desktop holders, and you know, one of the things that's really popular and can cost you a few bucks if you were to buy it, and a lot of us have. On Etsy or eBay or someplace. Let me see if I can find one of them. Seemed like I was seeing them all over the place when I was looking before. But you know, the adapters for all kinds of radios to go from the sort of proprietary power plugs to Anderson Power Pole. They make them for the FT891 and all kinds. You know, there's one right there. So if you can see where my cursor is, I don't know if that's showing up. You can see that one right there. Right, so those are adapters for that, for a number of different radios and things. Again, the side rails, right, there's all kinds of stuff, stands and covers, and you know, here's Kenwood. There's some stuff for Kenwood. You just have to look around and just try all kinds of different search terms and things. for whatever it is. It doesn't have to be ham radio per se. Of course, a lot of us watching this video are ham radio oriented, but there's all kinds of other stuff. And of course, our old buddy Baofeng, there's tons of stuff on Baofeng, like the desktop holder I did and showed you, but there's stuff, to help protect the antenna mount and protect the buttons, because you know how easy it is to hit the buttons and things. So it's all kinds of stuff. And then again, you got your choice of filament. If you're going to buy something from somebody, again, Etsy, eBay, Amazon, wherever it is, you've got the choice of colors they chose to make available. But trust me, there are thousands and thousands of different kinds of filaments and colors of filaments and solid colors and translucent colors and metallics and all kinds of stuff. So whatever you would want something to look like, if you had a printer, then you could make it look like that. So I think we'll wrap this one up, folks. Again, I went with the Anycubic Cobra S1, specifically the combo package with the external box, because it sounded like it would be everything that I would probably want for at least a while in the world of 3D printing. Right? It's still lower mid-tier, so I'm not spending tons of money, but enough that hopefully it would hold me and hold my interest and stuff for as long as I have that. Again, your needs may vary, but there's all kinds of printers out there, from a couple $100 to well into the thousands of dollars. As we saw, that one printer was $7,000. So just like anything else, any adult hobby tends to cost about the same amount of money. We can spend tons of money on our amateur radio equipment. We can spend as much money as you want to on 3D printing if you really get into it. But we'll wrap it up. This is Chris, KY4CKP for Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. We will see you folks in the next video, 73.